Good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful people. Good afternoon, good evening. No matter what time it is, just know this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. As always, God is good, and He is good all the time. So, if you haven't told from, the title, this is basically an address to the hooping community as it pertains to social media, right? It doesn't matter if it's TikTok hoopers, Facebook hoopers, Instagram hoopers, motherfucking YouTube hoopers. At the end of the day, when it comes to the basketball community, it is very divisive and ostracizing. And when I say that, it's because I am tired. And I see it on a regular basis. I am tired when I come into these sport, spaces, especially with weak-minded men, right? And I won't even say men because I don't believe that weakness in a sense of weak-mindedness, I don't think that that's an attribute to mother freaking men. I think that's an attribute to mother freaking boys. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's the weak-minded men, right? Now, I can sit here and I can show y'all the mother freaking screenshots of, males that I've reached out to trying to, work something out, figure out how do I get onto their platforms to compete in the 1v1 space, 2v2, whatever. But my main focus right now is getting into the 1v1 space. And you would think that if these people were, proponents to basically amplifying their platforms, you would think that they would try to bring in more like diversified competition, right? They wouldn't just always have men. They wouldn't just always have a bunch of black dudes. They wouldn't just, you see what I'm saying? They wouldn't just have a bunch of dudes from, for example, Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? It's very ostracizing, and you're not getting the full range of competition when you limit it, right? And you place these parameters and you're literally preventing people out. And the crazy part about it is that the guys that's ostracizing women and they're showing their weak-mindedness by saying like women can't compete with males, and they bring up this garbage about how males are physically, biologically different than women, which makes us innately and incapable of competing and at the bare minimum hanging out with men. And the crazy part about it is that I even hear this occasionally out of the mouths of dudes that I have sparred in legitimate boxing, martial arts. I've heard this from dudes that I've played basketball with and such. And the crazy part about it, they don't really keep this mentality once it's over. They come into this mentality in the beginning where they look at me. We could be on the same team and there's automatic strife because my existence is female. My when you look at me, I'm female presenting. So they're just like, no, she got to get out of here. And it's not on a protective measure. It's not, because these are the same dudes. I can do something as simple as the next person, right? I come into the game, I haven't really warmed up yet, and I'm still trying to get my bearings, right? And I can get this lob launched to me, or I can get a bullet. That's the main one. That did them fast, passes. And for the most part, I'll say about at least close to about 90% of the time, I normally catch them. But every now and then I might miss it. And I'll have this one weirdo that come out the woodworks and like, oh, you B, catch the ball. Da-da-da. And then they just start going irate. So it's obvious that it's not, we respect women mentality. This is why we don't want to play with you. We don't want you hurt, because if you respect women, you wouldn't be out here calling me bitchs. These same niggas won't be the same niggas that's being excessively physical on the space, right? And I've seen it several times just recently. I don't know if y'all could see it, but I'm like healing from getting yammed in the face with a nigga's shoulder, a little high school boy. And it's the insecurities. You could kind of see this junk was crazy, and my jaw was like hurting to the point where like I could barely open it. It was felt like I was developing lockjaw. But By the grace of God, I kept stretching it out, massaging, applying comfrey, and rubbing alcohol on it, and I healed relatively quickly. But the same day, I got yammed twice by the same dude with the same move. It's the, they try to bump you driving down, but it was just extra. Both times it was a foul. The second time, the dude just hit me in my face. The first dude was like, he at least had me by 100 pounds. And I wasn't really too bothered, except for the fact that I do believe he intentionally fouled me. So I called him out on it. I'm like, dude, that was a foul. I laughed it off and everything. He's like, oh, you stood in front of me. If anything, you block fouled me. And then he started getting irate, And then another gentleman, who I would say several other gentlemen, jumped in defense of me, and they told him, like, no, dude, you fouled her. And we know how she played. These are dudes that play with me regular. We know how she plays. She's strong as hell. She can hang with the dudes. And a lot of times she be locking niggas up. And when she does that, or she gets past them and they score, now they want to be excessive, pulling on my motherfucking clothes, swinging me around like this, motherfucking being excessive on the charges. And it's like, I appreciate it when the few, because it ain't that many men out here. It ain't that many men out here that are men, period, but that would defend a woman because I've been in these spaces many a times. I've seen it with other women when they are put in these precarious situations with males, and other males would be amongst them, but they turn into little bitchs and they don't say anything. And it's like, if you scared for your own well-being, that's fine. But do not usurp authority over women or attempt to usurp authority over women when clearly, you view yourself equal to them. You know what I'm saying? In regards to, you're not going to step to a man when you know that he's out of pocket with a woman. You know what I'm saying? Or being excessive. Like I said, these young gentlemen that did it, I applaud them, because majority of the time when I'm in these environments, I'm defending myself. And it ain't nothing new. I grew up fighting dudes. Like, I literally learned how to fighting males. When I was in boxing, martial arts, majority of the people that I sparred were males. When I was in the Marine Corps, majority of the time when I was training, when it came to grappling, McMap, sparring, motherfucking, even when it came to buddy drags, fireman carry, when it came to performing our CFT, my partner was always males, my size or bigger. And I stood then at 5'8". I'm currently 5'9", and I'm about 200 pounds. Not small. You see what I'm saying? And in the Marine Corps, I was 5'8", 165 pounds, where the average woman was about 5'5", 135 pounds. You see where this is going? So I know what I'm capable of, and I know I'm capable of hanging with males. I don't think it has anything to do with biological factors. I think that's an excuse for many people, especially males, when they want to cop out competing with a female to avoid the embarrassment of losing to a female. But the thing is that I don't understand how, for example, people call LeBron James the greatest of all time. How is he the greatest of all time when he hasn't competed in a space where it's all athletes, which includes females? We see it now when it comes to Caitlin Clark, even though there is a bit of a polarized stance in regards to the support for Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. At the end of the day, the language around them two, when it comes to, from like the average view from society, majority is negative. When the invite of, or when it was the talks about Caitlin Clark, being offered to join the Big Three, a lot of people was like, oh, she's not going to join. And I don't blame her for her apprehension, because for a person who's been competing in male space since I was a child, single digits, I know how it is. This is a person who is 32 years old, still go to the gym, still goes to the local basketball, parks and play basketball. I still go and play, flag football or two-hand touch or kickball with predominantly men on the team. I still play softball with predominantly men. As a person who majority of the time perform and compete amongst men, I hear the conversations that are always put out there. They're so redundant. And the crazy part about it is that I even have my brother, and I didn't have him do it. He did it himself. He heard a couple of young cats talking smack about me, right? And he challenged them. He was like, well, would you ever play my sister in a 1v1? Off the rip, they was like, nah. And my brother, he started trolling them. He was like, because you know she'll whoop your dusty tail. I was shocked, but he said they was in agreement. And I was like, I know what I'm capable of, but for dudes that I literally stood toe to toe, decked a couple of times, you know what I'm saying? To show them like, nigga, this ain't what you think it is. And for them to come out their mouths and say and admit that, like, yeah, we don't want to play her because 9 times out of 10 she'll whoop us. It's evident, right? But the thing that, like I said, it's annoying me when it comes to this basketball space because I've actually been reaching out to different platforms. Now, I know that a bunch of people humans function like prostitutes, right? Including these, social media platforms, hooping sport platforms. They function like whores, right? Where they don't want to move unless they think that they can get some clout off of it. They think they could get some money off of it, etc., right? Now, if I was some snotty-nosed dude that just, approached, for example, Terry Hosley and was like, yo, let me get on your 1v1 tours, he probably, and this is my assumption, that he probably, would have scrolled through my social media to see if he got any if he could find any footage of me. But I feel like there would have been some conversation there where there's like, okay, well, do you have any footage or anything of the sort? When I reached out to Terry Hosley, which was pretty recently, the dude, first of all, immediately read my message, but left me on red for days. So, and I'm the type of person, confrontation is where I dwell. I am perfectly fine and comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Confrontation is one of them. So I saw he ignored me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait at least 2 days to hit this nigga with a motherfucking follow-up message. We hit him with a business tactic, right? So then I hit him with the follow-up message and I'm like, actually, I could read verbatim what I said. And yeah, I could sit here and show the messages, which I don't mind, you know what I'm saying? I just have to screenshot them and get them posted. But let me show you what this dude. And I messaged him May 26th. I said, hey, Terry, I'd like to compete in your 1v1 tours in the near future. How do I make that happen? Crickets. So May 28th, the first message I sent him, May 26th. May 28th, 2 days later, I said, Terry, here's a follow-up message. If you're not interested, explicitly relaying that would be very informative. I said, I'd like to compete in your 1v1 tours in the near future. How do I make that happen if you're willing to allow me in your environment? His response was, about an hour later, hey, I think it's supposed to say, hey, love, but it says, hey, I love. I apologize for the no reply previously. And then it says, but have you ever played a 1v1? So my response to him, I appreciate you. And yes, I have, just not in the magnitude of how your 1v1s are structured. I personally don't think that question would have been asked if I was a male, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, this is something that I've been dealing with for a long time. Even in my pubescence, adolescence, even when I was in the military. I'm serving in the Marine Corps in a space where you would assume like, okay, the playing field is fairly even. No, bro. Even though women are expected to train alongside males, train to similar standards as males. And when I say similar standards, although on paper our standards seem to be a little bit more lenient, how it's actually carried out is like it is, and as black people understand, right? Even though on paper, society views black people as lazy, ignorant, ungovernable, incapable of governing themselves, and they require social control, right? Innately criminalistic, all this other stuff. But then when you look on paper, right? When you look on paper, that's how we perceive, because that's how society looks at us. But then when you look at us for yourself, you come into our communities and you see, majority of the times you see the black people are some hardworking people. Majority of them have jobs, maybe entry-level positions, but majority of them have jobs. They're not lazy. They constantly moving. They're constantly keeping themselves busy. You see what I'm saying? And then we, a lot of times, even overly excel because we, as black people, have been programmed that we have to work a lot harder than the average man, which the average man is a white man, where he could just show up or she could just show up and be accepted, be given whatever it is that they aspire to get. We got to work hard. And it was the same thing in the military, where female boot camp, we were constantly told, yeah, females are given this time to run 3 miles. Females are given, you're supposed to do this amount of push-ups in comparison, or excuse me, not push-ups, pull-ups in comparison to the males, or to do dead arm hang in comparison to the males. Even though there was some similarities, when it came to actually training, especially when your superior was a female, that motherfucking female superior was telling the women and training the women and pushing the women to do better, to work harder. They were constantly told, you have to overachieve because you are outnumbered in the space by men. You off the rip are looked at as incapable of carrying out the duties that pertains to your job, just based solely on your reproductive system. So you have to go above and beyond. I knew women who was the mother of 3 kids running 3 miles in about 22 minutes. That's unheard of. The average male don't even run a 3-mile run in 22 minutes. The average male runs a 3 mile in what, maybe 26? The average. We're not talking about somebody who runs, who motherfucking trains for long distance runners. We talking about the average, which the average is a couch sitting sedentary person. So again, we got to do better as a community. The whole ostracizing, ignoring people, leaving people on red, it's like mind blowing to me, because Terry got me. He's older than me. Dude's pushing 40. I'm 32. Dude's like 39, And it's like, but then I realized we all wasn't raised the same. Because I was raised in a 2-parent household with my mama and daddy, who taught us self-respect and respect of others, courtesy. When somebody talk to you, you don't ignore them. If you ignoring them, because there's some tension, there's some feud there. You respond to people. You express what it is that is on your mind. You don't tiptoe, you don't pussyfoot. And people get mad when I call them out for the pussyfoot. That's why I told him, if you're not interested in me being on your space, then explicitly say that. But then even after I responded to him, told him, yeah, I have 1v1 experience. He hasn't came back to open the message, but this is supposed to be his business profile. Now, I'm not telling this nigga how to run his business. What I am saying is that discrimination is illegal in the United States of America. So even your platforms, right, that y'all are trying to put out there, discrimination cannot be in the forefront. Imagine trying to go buy a house and then they looked at you and was like, Terry, your nose is as wide as a bell pepper. Hell to the motherfucking no. You hella dark. Hell no. Well, have you ever lived in a house like this? It's the same thing when y'all look at houses and you're like, this house is nice. It seems affordable. And then you go talk to the the application folks and you try to apply for the place. And then now all of a sudden they putting all these extra parameters on it and stipulations. Now you have to have 5 times the amount of rent. You got to show them your income, and your income got to be 10 times the amount of the rent. Now niggas treat y'all like that. You be out here getting frustrated about to rip your clothes off, turning into the hawk and stuff. These jobs, we see it. We see the frustrations on a regular basis where black men with no criminal record are passed over for jobs that are given to white men when they have criminal records. That's literally academic research data. That a black man is 9 times, he is more likely to be chosen over by a white man with a criminal record for a job, even though he doesn't have one. So when you put in these ostracizing measures against females or against tiny dudes or white dudes or whatever, I mean, it's the same concept. That's why I think it's trash when y'all niggas be trying to get clickbaits off of, this is the coldest white boy ever out there. Y'all literally perpetrating the racist stereotype, the racist idea that white people cannot compete physically when it comes to anything in black people. As if we are biologically structured to dominate when it comes to physical fitness. That has already been debunked as pseudoscience, false. But yet, we see these ideas be reinforced. And then they start to shift because now it's not being solely attributed to color, but now it's being attributed to gender. And now it's being attributed to other demographics like your motherfucking financial background, whether you're a renter versus a homeowner, whether you have college degrees or not, whether you have a high school diploma or not, whether you have a GED or not. Come on. Come on. I mean, I don't get it. If competition was legit and you out here trying to show that you the best, or you trying to put on your platform, right? Wouldn't you take a more all-inclusive approach? If you trying to separate yourself from all the other platforms, why would you continue to introduce the same tactics on your platform? We see the same playing styles. We see the same games. We see the same players on various platforms. And they're all males. Yeah, we got all these female hoopers out here. We got all these female football players out here. We got all these female hockey players out here. Like, what the freak? What is going on? And then it's off the bat like, nah, y'all can't compete. If that ain't some racist white people stuff, I don't know what it is. That's the same stuff racist white people used to say when they wanted to leave black people out of the space and literally orchestrate it to where nobody can benefit off that system. Neither can no one contribute to that system but them white people, them racist white people. And that's exactly what y'all doing here in these sports spaces, ostracizing against women. They get the automatic assumption that you can beat somebody just because of their reproductive system is illogical. It's an illogical fallacy, okay? It's a logical fallacy. But I just wanted to say all that. I've reached out to quite a few platforms. I reached out to Uncle Scoob a couple of years ago, trying to get him to Rochester, New York, to compete with some of our players. And this is another thing that it's like, dude, don't treat me like your child that you a deadbeat to. Uncle Scoob, this is for you. This nigga hit me with yeah, I'll be there, I'll come through. And then when I hit him up, like, to solidify the date, he never shows up. Please don't treat me like a deadbeat child where you got the deadbeat daddies when they go out and tell their kids like, yeah, I'm going to pick you up and take you to Chuck E. Cheese. And then you sitting at the window waiting for daddy to come pick you up at Chuck E. Cheese. And next thing you know, he call your mom like, yeah, not today, not today. But school didn't even inform me. It didn't happen. Fell apart. There's a couple of them I reached out. And at least I could say I appreciate the ones that I reached out to who didn't even bother opening my message. They didn't even bother leaving me on red. So that I respect a little bit more because I'm a big proponent of etiquettes, like courtesy. Treat me as I treat you. I'm not the type of person that'll open somebody's message and leave them on red, even if I don't want no parts of what you talk about. I'm going to tell you why, because I have that fortitude. I ain't scared. I don't have to pussyfoot. And I encourage other people to share that same mentality. Do as the Bible says. Let your yes be yes or your no be no. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Another young man I just recently reached out to, Josh Bell, over there at Jay with the Rock. I reached out to him, and for the the first message that I put out there, he responded, and I appreciate it, because like I said, I reached out to Terry and it was nothing. And I reached out to this young man and he responded back. I said, hey, I'm Tierra. How do I get a 1v1 set up through your platform? He said, hey, I just need to know who you would be playing and we could talk dates for the next event. I had them set up with someone on our next one. And I said, okay, I don't have anyone in particular that I want to play. I just want to challenge myself playing more skilled players and expand my opponent's reach. So whatever matchup you give me, I'll take it. Even against males, I ask that you ensure that the male athlete is cool with it. Some of them egos are so high, I'd rather a matchup that won't end in a duking match. And that's because majority of the times that I've been injured in basketball is because I've been playing prideful dudes. They're the dudes that, especially in a team space, they like, oh, you just got crossed by a girl. You're going to get locked up, you're going to get clamped by a girl. And that motherfucking line right there feeds this nasty part of niggas' egos. And then next thing you know, they come out there playing all wild, bumping into me. And it's like, dude, if you want to bump like this, I got boxing gloves in my gym bag. Like we can go box. They never take me up on the offer. It's probably because some of them be seeing how I train in there, because I be going in there hitting up the bag. But they'll never take me up on my offer. So that's why I told him, if you link me up with a male opponent, make sure he cool with it. Mentally right. I don't want one of these weak-minded niggas that's going to be out here obliterating me because he wants to show that he's a man and he wants to put me in my place as a woman. You ignorant niggas. Because y'all the type that be out here that women, you need to submit to me. Baby, read the Bible. Wives, submit unto your husband. You ain't got no wife. So don't no woman has to submit to you, brother. Anyways, so after I said that, he said, understood. We should be able to get a female to play you this summer for sure. I can see how the male's feeling. Then he asked, where am I from? And I said, okay, I appreciate you. And I'm from Rochester, New York. I'm willing to fund my own expenses, make the trip and get myself out there. You ain't got to pay for nothing. Nothing for me. Get myself there. He said, understood for sure. Definitely can make that happen. We would talk real soon. Appreciate you for reaching out. And then he asked, how tall am I? And then that's when I told him how tall I am. I'm about 5'9", 200 pounds. And then he said, understood, and you know it. And then a few days later, I messaged him, which it showed that he's seen. And this is, again, courtesy, etiquette, y'all. If you spend the energy to open up the message, you can spend the energy to write back, even if it's something quick. I did this yesterday where I accidentally opened up a message. I was conversing with a young lady through Instagram messages, right? And she sent me a message, and my phone was unlocked, so I saw it pop up, and I clicked it, just thinking like, oh, I gotta click it. But then I'm like, wait, hold on, I'm driving, so I can't even pay attention to this. So I had we was at a red light, I think it was. So I just quickly, I'm driving, I'll respond later. And then put my phone down. A few seconds later, the light turned green, boom, and I started driving again. Once I got to where I was going, I came back to the message. It's really not that hard because y'all do it all the time for people that you want to converse with, you know? And I know y'all probably trying to figure out what am I looking at, and I'll show you. I'm over here studying for the GRE. For those who don't know, it's something that could be utilized to get you into graduate school and or law school instead of taking the LSAT. I took the LSAT twice. I didn't get the score that I wanted. Then I found out, oh, you can use the GRE. And I was going to utilize the GRE, but apparently they're only active for 5 years. And I took the GRE in 2019 to take my master's, right? To get into my master's program, but it expired in 2024. So I'm retaking the GRE because to me, it's a lot easier to get the score that I want on the GRE versus the LSAT. And this is so I can get into my PhD/JD, go to law school. Because I'm going to get my PhD and get my JD so I can become a lawyer. And been in here studying. This is why I suck with motherfreaking being responsive with posting, editing and posting. It's because, I mean, I could show y'all all day. I got motherfreaking a PCB here. And I'll show y'all. I'm doing so much work. My office is messy. But you see, I'm working on this right here. Got my little tool set up here. I got all my little PCB set up. All this jazz. I got my motherfucking solder machine. And on top of the fact that I'm still doing renovations in my house, which I'm about to end this video right now and go finish motherfucking hanging some drywall. So yeah, I say all that to say, man, I just want to go back and reiterate, we got to stop motherfucking ducking people, ghosting people, motherfucking pussyfooting around it. Like, if you want to do something, if you don't want to do something, just explicitly say it. Like, I'm nobody to tell somebody what to do on their platform. What you do on your platform is what you do on your platform. What you do with your body is what you do with your body. You don't have to listen to me. But best believe I'm going to say it because I feel the need to say it. So it's being said. We got to be courteous, man. When somebody speaks to you, speak back. Did your mama teach you that? Because most of us was raised by our mamas. Most of us had some woman in our life that was teaching us how to be courteous individuals with etiquette. You know, explicitly say it and then have a legitimate refute for why you don't want something, you know, or have a legitimate rebuttal as to why something shouldn't go, right? You don't want females on your platform. You can express that without coming off discriminatory. I understand that for some reason you have these environments that of males that love these sausage fests. It's no shade there. Do as you please. But when I'm looking at it as like I'm just trying to compete and get myself out there, if you don't want me or anybody for that matter on your platform because you feel they don't have the clout, they don't have the following, they don't have enough content, they don't have the right biological makeup, just say it. Put it out there. The pussyfooting is weak. It's weak, especially when it's carried out by men. And when I say men, I mean it in the sense of males. I don't mean it in the sense of men as in, you know, my idea of what a man is. Because I don't think a man will leave somebody, you know, on red. Or I don't think a man will avoid confrontation. You see what I'm saying? I think men are wise. I don't think that they're coming to something all impulsive and malignant. However, I do believe that they will address whatever is being presented to them instead of hiding and waiting for it to just disappear. Or maybe if I ignore them, you know, they'll get the clue and won't respond back. You know, that's to me is weak. When I ask you, what do I have to do to get on your platform? Just express it. There's nothing you can do to get on my platform. Or if there is, these are some of the things that we are looking at. Because if you are a legitimate platform, whether it's for athletes, artists, you know what I'm saying, or what have you, it should be expressed and it should be carried as such. Some of y'all carry y'all platforms like it's this bootleg entity, and it shows. It shows. It shows in the quality. It shows in the interactions. You know, it shows with the feuds that continuously pop up and stuff. And the thing is that you have people out here who think they are above reproach. They think like, who are you to tell me about me or my space? Boy, the Bible says ain't nobody above reproach. Okay? The Bible also says if you have an ought with your brother, bring it up to him. This is me publicly bringing the ought to the platforms out here, to the spaces that's out here that are facilitating these matchups. If you are a true platform, right, then it should look at such. Now, I know a lot of people in their platforms are still in the early stages. They're still in the construction period, right? which is evident from the biting, right? Everybody taking from this, and then they just, imitating the same stuff that we've been seeing, recycling the same players that we've been seeing. And honestly, there's way too much hoopers out here for us to see the same few over and 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 over. It's too many. And then y'all have to literally, it's like, I don't know, maybe some of y'all haven't sat in a college class or something to learn, even, you ain't even got to take on no business program, but you could at least took on a class and learn a little something, right? Because when it comes down to it, it's like, when it comes to the sense of longevity, you can't achieve longevity where you're placing all of these constraints onto yourself, where you're not trying to expand your reach. You're not trying to be more inclusive. I mean, we see it all the time where it's like, it's this recycling of the same type of platforms. It's the same type of content. And it's getting to the point where it's like, it's boring. It's boring. And then it's literally like, it's kind of sad when you look at these sports platforms, because they literally have to reshape every 6 months. And I'm just being generous with saying 6 months. It's probably less than that. It's probably closer to quarters. They have to reshape every 6 months. We've seen it when one of them bigger YouTube platforms first came out. They were copying off of the smaller platforms. And that's usually what big platforms do. They copy off of smaller platforms, but because they have more funding and they have more, reach, it's easier for them to just take over and then drown out the other person. But we've seen it time and time again where all these platforms is like, okay, I want to take in the street ball, I want to take the street ball path. But then as you see it, they're tailoring it more and more and more to the NBA. And I don't understand it, because if this is supposed to be platforms for people who have not made the NBA, why is it so identical? I understand cleaning up the rules, but you are the facilitators. You are the orchestrators. Why does your cleanup methods resemble major platforms like the NBA? And then we see with the WNBA, we see with women college basketball, that they're starting to, women are starting to gain more attraction when it comes to fans and the reach of people. Yet we still view sports in this very limited way, where it's but we need to have the males all competing here, then we have the females competing here, and there's no mixing. And people talk about all of this, oh, you're gonna get injured, you're gonna get injured. It's boy, I've played alongside women, females, and males. You get injured regardless. I had a teammate when we was playing softball in high school. This girl, I think it was one of them pop balls, but that jump caught our catcher in the face. I declared that her nose was broke. I don't know if it was, but her junk was jacked. And this is some little teenage girls. Teenage girls. I remember I slid once onto a base. I don't know what the freak happened, but the next day my knee locked up like I could barely extend my knee. Went back to normal afterwards. Still able to run, jump, all this other stuff later on. But you see what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. So you can't say that you're protecting women from injuries, because women are going to get injured even when we compete against women. Me personally, I've always been a proponent to blending the two for those who are willing to do it. I'm not saying force them, because I know not every female is going to want to play a male, just like I know every male ain't going to want to play a female. But for those who do, why not allow it? And you can't sit here and say it's for this safety measures and all this other stuff, because I'm 32 years old, and at least for 27 years of my life, majority of the times of me been competing has been alongside males. The only time I've ever had to compete in a space with women in an organized format was softball and basketball, and that was my junior and senior year. Outside of that, it's been pretty equally blended. The same thing with the Marine Corps. Yeah, they still had the isms. They still, you're a woman. You ain't nothing but a walking mattress. This is the mentality, you know? But at the same time, them dudes knew, I'm not going to grapple Grayson because I don't want to be embarrassed. No, get him to grapple her. Women can compete, and I'm tired of people automatically assuming and associating weakness with women when it comes to competing with males and in male dominant spaces. So to reiterate, I really hope that the hooping platforms really clean themselves up. And for the names that I've addressed specifically, or explicitly, is because there is a sense of respect for y'all compared to these other platforms, right? I'm the advocate for the underdog, right? Especially y'all have smaller platforms. So I'm all for these smaller platforms growing, on top of the fact that these smaller platforms are a lot more diverse than we see with the bigger YouTube basketball platforms. The bigger YouTube basketball platforms are homogeneously ran and owned by white kids who benefit from nepotism. People talk about how, there's this one platform, and I'm not giving them no extra clout than what they do enough on their own. But then people were talking about how, just in their video qualities alone, they separate themselves from the masses. But when you got daddy's play money to play with, you can afford that. When you motherfucking are working a 9-to-5 job and you basically living paycheck to paycheck, or you have to resort to hustling, yeah, your platform gonna look a little different from the Nepo baby. That's like if LeBron James' son was to decide, like, hey, I'm gonna create a basketball platform on YouTube. Off the rip, it's gonna be structured a lot better than any other of these smaller platforms on YouTube. Why? Because he has the funding. He's a Nepo baby. So I think that's unfair when people try to make it seem like these other platforms are better, when this very platform I'm talking on literally stole its idea from the smaller platforms that are in the street ball community. In fact, two of the biggest YouTube platforms right now are quarreling, even though they started alongside each other, benefiting off of each other's daddy's monies. But then one homie's like, I should venture out and do something myself. So he get with the biracial kid from Ohio, who also has the benefit, because you have to remember how funding works. And I know a lot of us don't like to accept the fact that race plays a factor, gender plays a factor, and all these extra legal factors play a factor, but they do. And so this is why I said, when I mention names like Terry Hosley and I mention Josh Bell, it's because their platforms are more diverse. They got some black people. They got some Latino people. When it comes to the power structure, the ownership, the shareholders, if you will, they're, in comparison to these bigger platforms, they are a bit more diverse. And that's why I support it, because I always been against that. It's the same tactic that we see now with these big businesses, right? Jails and prisons. Black people are disproportionately incarcerated to the point where people falsely believe that black people commit the most crimes of all people out here. And yet the people that make majority of the money makes it off of the strength of black people. But when you look at the shareholders, when you look at the people in power, the owners, when you look at their board, majority of them ain't black. They are homogeneously white. And I've never been with nothing that's like that, where your board members or your owners or, the people that's at the top that's benefiting the most is one group, but then the ones that doing all the work is a whole nother group. You making all this money off these people. And that's why I don't support these bigger platforms, because these bigger platforms, they literally depend on black athletes to propel their platforms. But I personally feel that they're not paid well, even though they have the ability to pay them. They boast and brag about, the resources and access that they have, and how, we see it. It's constantly flaunted and flexed in our faces when they put themselves up in these damn near mansions and whatnot, right? When you look at the amount of money that they have coming in, and it's the same complaint when it came to the WNBA. And it was the same complaint with the NBA. It's like these people at the top making all this money, yet us people that's doing all the work getting pennies. And so that's why I'm a proponent to the smaller platform. That's why I tell people like Josh Pell, I will cover my own expenses. You ain't got to cover nothing for me. Because I know you're a smaller platform. You still trying to make it work. You see what I'm saying? You're not like these other platforms that's coming in with daddy's money. They already coming in with money, and then they making even more. They making more profit off of our black tails. So that's why I don't respect those platforms. And I know there's probably some people that's like, well, would you ever play on those larger platforms? And at the headspace that I'm at now, it would be a no. It would be a no, because of exactly what I said. To do what? To just be seen? Me personally, I've never thought that was, I never thought that was anything grand. I never thought that was anything grand. It's like the Super Bowl, where people sit here and talk about they don't have to get paid. The payment is the fact that you're on the Super Bowl and you get all these eyes on you. Boy, don't nobody give a damn about that, because them eyes don't pay my bills. Okay? I can't feed myself with eyes. And then they're intangible eyes, because most of these eyeballs is through the television and they're virtual. But it's like, bro, no. So I say all that to say, and I know this is 40+ minute video. I had to put it out there. But I really hope that the sports platform just does better as a whole. And stop exploiting people based solely on the fact that, well, they're poor, they're more likely to take on whatever crappy deal we give them because they're coming from nothing anyways. They ain't have nothing. Some of these people are couch surfing. They're homeless. They're living with their homies. They stayed up in trap houses. They don't have a residence of themselves. They don't have a roof over their head that their name is on the lease or the mortgage or the deed. So they're exploiting them. It's the same thing we see with the music industry. Hey, we'll take your talents. We'll suck you dry of all your talents, and then we'll just hand you pennies, because it's a few more pennies than what you're used to. Angie Stone was just murdered, talking about how she could have retired well over 20 years ago. The UMG was stealing money from her. This is literally the projected path that these bigger platforms on YouTube are taking, where it's the rich gets richer, the poor gets poorer, and the rich keeps eating the poor. So I hope you learned something from this. If you got offended, hey, maybe in your offense, it'll work on you and you'll seek some wisdom, because I'm not saying this to be a douche. I'm saying this because people need to hear it. You're moving like a whore. You are moving like a whore. When you don't want to do anything without the perfect amount of dollars set. You don't want to play somebody without them having the perfect status or clout. You're moving like whores. Okay? It ain't cute. We can do a lot better. And this space can actually, the social media sports platform could really take off and elevate if we set aside all the garbage. So I love y'all. God bless. Peace. If you want people to think otherwise of you more positively, then give them more positive experiences.